So after the last video dropped, the AI voice seemed like a good idea, and then the voice shows up.
Are you sure about this? How do people even stand this? What if this is weird?
Honestly, I couldn't listen to it myself. So this time, my own voice, no standing. I'm always tweaking my recipes, cutting out steps you don't need, dropping ingredients that don't matter. The simpler, the better. Sometimes I cook with homemade sauces in my cooking. Store-bought, most of them can't hit the flavor and texture I want. I will share them with you, one by one, when the time is right. A while back, I was traveling and stumbled across Nanru pork ribs. First bite, I actually paused. Nanru. Most of you probably haven't heard of this ingredient. It's fermented red bean curd sauce. Savory, a little funky, it has a light wine taste. Cook ribs in it, and you get something completely different from your standard braised ribs. And that got me thinking, how far can you push pork ribs? Everyone knows sweet and sour pork ribs, the classic, but honestly, the recipe has been done to death. So I wanna switch things up. First, I tried apple cider vinegar. Not bad, but still missing something. Then pear, tomato, plum, banana, and finally Newton's apple showed up. So in this video, 3 rib recipes broken down properly. Nanru pork ribs, fruit acid pork ribs, and the classic sweet and sour pork ribs. Let's start with the ribs. Pork ribs, best texture. I personally like chewing on cartilage, so I usually go for the ones with soft bone. They soak up the sauce and get incredibly tender. Fresh or frozen, I always soak the ribs in cold water first. It pulls out all the blood and gets rid of that gamey taste. 15 minutes for fresh, an hour for frozen. Swap out the water halfway through. You can't rush this. Now blanching. This is where most people mess up. Even a lot of Chinese cooks overlook this. First, you have to start with cold water. Simple reason. As the temperature rises slowly, the blood and impurities inside the meat seep out little by little. Don't max out the heat. If the surface proteins set too fast, all the blood gets locked inside. The meat ends up gamey, so this one matters. 3 things go in the pot: 2 grams of salt, 15 milliliters of rice wine, 3 slices of ginger. Salt changes the osmotic pressure. It helps draw the blood out. You'll see a lot more foam. Ginger goes after transmussling. That's a compound behind that pokey, earthy smell. And the rice wine, I use Chinese rice wine. Evaporates at high heat and takes a gymnast with it. Once it boils, gentle simmer for 3 minutes, skim the foam. About the rice wine, if you can't find it locally, hit up a Chinese grocery. Shoujing rice wine or Huatiuqiu, either one works. Pour them out and rinse with warm water. Don't go too hot, you'll burn your hands. My temperature sets at 45, just right for the ribs. Whatever you do, don't rinse with cold water. The ribs come out hot. Cold water hits them, the meat contracts hard. Blood locks back in. Texture turns tough. Dry them off. We are frying next. Water in hot oil is a disaster. Now the pan. Don't use traditional Teflon non-stick pans, because this dish has acid seasonings and needs a long braise. 2 things that will wreck that coating fast. I use a Chinese steel wok. Start to finish. Enable the cast iron works too. Sauce stay cleaner. Up to you. First, the sauce. All ratios below are based on 500 grams of ribs. For Nanru pork ribs, 30 milliliters of Nanru sauce, 30 milliliters of light soy sauce, 30 grams of rock sugar. Mix it up. Set it aside. Also start a pot of boiling water. We'll need it in a minute. Time to fry the ribs. A little oil in the wok. Get it hot. Put the ribs in. Medium heat. Fry until the surface is nicely brown. Pour in the sauce. Give it a quick toss so every piece gets coated. Then add plenty of hot water, enough to cover the ribs. Drop to medium low, simmer for 40 minutes. Check on it occasionally, don't let it boil dry. Alright, the ribs are ready. Crank the heat, let the sauce reduce, just until coat the ribs. Not too dry, not too runny. Seasoning sits on top, plate it up. Glossy red, savory with a hint of wine. Have it with rice, unreal. Second dish, fruit acid pork ribs. For the sauce, 15 ml Chinese rice wine, 15 ml Chinese black vinegar, 15 ml apple cider vinegar, 45 light soy sauce, 30 grams rock sugar, plus 1 apple, just cut it into chunks. Same method as the Nanru pork ribs. Fry the ribs, pour in the sauce and apple pieces. Same time, same way. Amber color, sweet and sour with an extra layer of fruitiness. No, I almost forgot to break down what these seasonings actually do. It's simple. Light soy sauce, that's your base sourness and umami. Chinese rice wine evaporates and takes a gymnast with it. Also tenderizes the meats and its aroma. Drop sugar and vinegar, that's your sweet and sour base. Simple, right? Chinese cooking has no secret codes. The key is understanding the logic. What each ingredient does, why it goes in. Once you get that, you can start adjusting ratios yourself. Third dish, classic sweet and sour pork ribs. Same method, so I won't repeat it. I will leave this one for you to try it. I will put together a comparison chart of all 3 recipes. Screenshot for next time you cook. Any questions while you are cooking, drop them in the comments. If this video is helpful to you, support and subscribe to this channel. Thank you.